Exactly. And I think that it's similar to just general self-defense in that if you've never thought about it, right, that's a problem. As soon as you start thinking about it critically and really give it like, a little bit of attention, you're already like just so much better off.
We call it be aware but not on guard, right?
Absolutely.
You're like you're not naive, nor are you paranoid.
Are you looking for a way to drive growth, sales, communication, and retention in your academy? Kovar System's 6-month Program Director course is designed to help members of your team thrive in the important role of Program Director. With step-by-step training, we will cover a wide range of topics, including prospect follow-up, overcoming objection, and securing enrollments. Our program will teach your team members to effectively communicate the values and benefits of martial arts, which can be a game changer in securing more enrollments at your academy. Our next 6-month course starts on this date. So don't wait and visit our site, www.kovarsystems.com, to get your team enrolled in the upcoming course. Again, that's www.kovarsystems.com. Enroll now and get ready to see some real results in your business.
Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast, the ultimate resource for ambitious, hardworking school owners that want to get their business and their life to the next level. My name is Dave Kovar. I'm a lifetime martial artist, business owner, speaker, and author. My goal is to empower listeners with the knowledge and the tools they need to break through barriers and really get their business and their life to the next level. Thanks for watching and enjoy. Welcome to the Satori Lifestyle Satori Masters Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kovar, and with me today is Tim Leard. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
All right, you betcha. So Mr. Leard and I go way back, actually. Mr. Tim, you've been with us for like 20 years now, something like that.
It's real close, I think, since 2005.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, 18 years, and you actually came to us already as a black belt. I think you were a third-degree black belt when you started with us.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, you just kind of stepped into our organization and really have been such an integral part, and you've been in list some of the different positions that you've had within the company.
Oh, yeah, instructor, program director, head instructor. I've done stints at front desk when I was too injured to do the other things.
How many different locations have you worked at?
Let me think. It's got to be about 5 or 6.
Yeah, you've been all over, man. Yeah,
maybe 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just such a versatile guy, and I know as of the last couple years, you're transitioning more into Kovar Systems, and you're helping out with Satori Alliance, instructors training, and
yes, sir.
And also your passion for years since I've known you. Your Kenpo is excellent. What was your original style?
I started in Kuk Sul and a little bit of Hapkido way back in the day.
I remember that. Okay.
Yes, sir. And then pretty quickly got into Kenpo, American Kenpo.
Yeah. And then also, of course, you've done Brazilian Jujutsu for a long time, but clearly your passion's been Krav for as long as I've known you.
Yes, sir.
And kind of first off, kind of give people that may not be aware what, I remember I even had this conversation with you. When Krav first came out, I thought it was bad Kenpo meets sloppy Muay Thai, kind of sort of. I didn't understand, right? I just didn't understand and now that I've been exposed to it and been around it and there's so many, really like, oh, that makes total sense. So give me kind of a premise as to why it's not really a movement, it's more of a mindset to self-defense. It's more than a series of movements, right? Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yeah, a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is doctrine, and it was, I guess, to sum it up, it's the paring down. It's the cutting away of absolutely as much as possible, leaving just practical self-defense left over.
So it's kind of like having one answer for as many problems as possible. Would that be a good way to sum it up?
That's a core premise of it. Yeah, it's minimal. Use the minimal amount of tools in your toolbox, because when you want to reach into that toolbox, you want to be able to find the tool you're looking for quick, but have that tool be applied in a wide variety of situations.
Yeah, so like I grew up, of course, American Kenpo, and you've heard the story, but anyway, I forget my black belt. I had, including variations, 400 self-defense techniques in 22 forms, and Kenpo forms are take 4 hours to get through, right? and I remember on the black belt test, we were doing some self-defense stuff, and someone grabbed my shoulder, and I remember pausing because I didn't know which move to do because I knew 43 different moves against the shoulder grab.
Yeah.
So Krav kind of turns that upside down. It's like, all right, whatever the attack is, here's how I'm going to counter.
Yes, sir. Yeah, as much as possible, for sure. So yeah, small toolbox, wide ranging application, and it's a big part of it is trying to simplify for the reasons of training cycles. So it was originally developed for soldiers in the military who had a very limited time of training before they had to get out on the front lines. And so it's meant to bring people to a high as possible level of proficiency in the shortest time possible.
Yeah, so I've likened it to, and I hope this isn't offensive to my Krav friends, but I've likened it to like if you want to make a cake and you want it to be the world's best tasting cake, you're going to go from scratch, right? And it's going to take a long time and it's going to taste really good. Or you don't have a lot of time, you have a good box recipe and it tastes pretty darn good, but you can get it done quick. And is that a fair analogy to a certain degree?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, that could be argued. So like the less ingredients, just to get to the end product a little faster. Yeah. Right? Like I've got a birthday party this afternoon, and I got to throw something together because it's happening.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, so and I know as of late you've been, of course, part of Krav Alliance under John Whitman, an amazing instructor, a really insightful guy, and so unfortunately in this day and age, things have changed, and in our lifetime, all of a sudden. These mass shootings have occurred more and more and more and more, and it's become a real issue. And it's unfortunate that it's something that we really all of a sudden need to kind of, as self-defense instructors, probably be alert and aware of. So first off, why don't you give us a description of what's a good definition of what a mass shooting would be?
So every agency who looks at it, everybody's got their own kind of definition. What they all have in common is that there is an armed assailant indiscriminately targeting people, in a public area, in a populated area, not necessarily public, but yeah. So there's plenty of people around, and there's one person with, the willingness and equipment to try to take them out.
So random is part of the equation, right? Like, in other words, this isn't, all right, man, I want to take out that guy and his family. That's not the same as necessarily the active shooter where
right,
I guess the line is blurred.
The goals are a little bit, sure, lines can be blurred, but there's an element of indiscriminate targeting, right? Just maximum damage caused, and it doesn't really matter who they're shooting at so much. Yeah. It might matter a little bit where it happens. If it could be targeted at a particular group, like if it happens in a church or something like that, but it's not specific. I'm going to go for this particular person.
That stuff happens, but that's not within the definition. And I just kind of backing up to Krav. Why I think the Krav mindset is so good for this is that it's more about and when you normally do a Krav, not only is it the technique, but you're dealing with you really it's important to teach students how to deal with adrenal dump too, adrenal stress response. So just in general, what tell somebody what that might mean and how they might do it.
One of my favorite terms is, I actually stole this from Tony Blauer, is stress inoculation. So under any stressful circumstance, and of course an active shooting incident counts as that, but any self-defense, anytime someone's suddenly confronted with violence in a civilized place, you're going to get the adrenal dump. So the adrenal system your endocrine system dumps adrenaline into your system, and you're getting ready for fight or flight, right? This is old evolutionary stuff from back in the caveman days. Well, if you're not used to that sensation, it doesn't always help. It can cause people to freeze, right? People's motor skills degrade considerably under that kind of stress. And so by training to and through that, creating that sort of adrenal dump situation in a classroom as much as possible, people become sort of inoculated to it. So it's like a little bit like if you've never been in the water and you're suddenly dropped in, right? You might not know what to do. But if you've been in the pool before, you've been on the water, and maybe it wasn't like as an Olympic swimmer, but you've got the idea of what it's like to be in the environment, you function better.
So take me through, all right, like you got a group of martial artists that are pretty skilled, right? Technically, they're proficient, they're in good shape, they can hit and kick hard, they're good fighters, So take me through some drills, like some classic drills that would help somebody become stress inoculated. All right, that's one thing to have the skills, but to be able to do it under pressure, that's the next thing. So give me an idea of what I as an instructor might do with my class to what some simple things I can do to get them used to that.
One of the easiest things, right, to do is just get people really, really tired. So when fatigue, right, is similar, that stresses you out when you're tired, right? So, blast out the push-up, squats, whatever, get somebody really, really tired, and then have them try to perform a technique, and just kind of go through that cycle a little bit. So that's a real general thing. Other things that you can do is, anything that changes the environment. Normally we're training, in plenty of light, in a comfortable temperature, on soft mats. Anytime you take one of those things away, it starts to create a little bit of that stress, and you can introduce other variables like that. Of course, safety is always key. You have to be aware of safety risk along the way and take measures, but anytime you change any of those things. So having to do something from a eyes closed position to start with is a really good way to deprive a human of kind of their primary sense, and put a little bit of that stress there too.
Very cool. I'm reminded of back in the day, some of the dumb stuff. I had a training partner, Ray Arquilla, who you know. And I'm like, just to put in perspective, I'm only 20 and he's like 26, so at least I'm a kid. And we used to do stuff. One of our things is we used to fight on top of a picnic table, and we'd spar, and the whole idea was to push the other guy off the picnic table, right?
Right.
And you think, how did we not kill ourselves, right? But that would be, or we used to fight. We used to go up by a river and fight on the rocks by basically up by Rainbow Bridge there, try to push each other into the river.
And that's all really good training until somebody actually gets hurt, and then it's bad training. So you don't know until it's done.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, but the whole idea is, how can we create an environment that is safe, but it's the stress is high. So because clearly what happens, the concern is, and you and I have both seen it happen, where they're so into reality training that people get hurt training so that they won't get hurt in a self-defense situation,
right?
Which I always find fascinating.
It's a constant balancing act, but you got to be real careful about coming a little bit too close to that line. And Amy Lichtenfeld, the founder of Krav Maga, was quoted as saying, "You can't send a wounded soldier into battle, so you got to keep your soldiers safe."
I love that. And how many times have I, in my earlier career, and I've still seen it happen, have wanted to help someone learn how to defend themselves, and also just benefit from martial arts training, but the environment was so unsafe that they got injured and they had to quit before they ever were able to do so. It's kind of like, you got to ease people into it. So that's one of the things that I know, that the drills that you've introduced to the team and that we do are, that they're kind of thought through ahead of time, so they're safe. There's always going to be a risk of injury anytime you step out on the mat, but you can certainly do a lot to minimize it.
Absolutely, that's it. Make things more realistic while simultaneously minimizing injury. It's a tough job, but it's one we got to be thinking about all the time.
Yep. All right, so let's get specific now. All right, so first and foremost, what in general, let's just say, are the people listening right now that are martial artists, and maybe a lot of them are martial arts professionals. So how do you think what we do as a profession helps in the bigger scheme of things when it comes to active shooting?
So there's a kind of a couple of different lenses, I guess, scopes I could look at this under. The obvious one is just being aware, just making people smarter and aware of what's risky behavior, what's safe behavior, getting people to think about that and maybe take some action on creating safe habits, right? It's not the moves themselves necessarily, and it's not what they do when a bad thing happens. It's how are they staying away from risky situations where bad things are more likely to happen, and moving to situations where bad things are less likely to happen. So it's awareness of environment, and just I think as soon as somebody starts thinking about it seriously, they're way better off.
Yeah. So I share a story. 30 years ago, a guy comes into my school. And he's got stitches right over his lip. He's got a black eye and a busted nose, and he looked like a guy that just got in a bar fight, right? And I go, "Yes, may I help you?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want to learn how to defend. I want to learn how to fight." I go, "What's going on?" I go, "What's going on?" He goes, "Well, every time I go to this bar, I get in a fight." And I jokingly said, "Don't go to that bar." And he goes, "Oh, I never thought of that," right? That was like mind-boggling concept, but that's kind of what you're talking about. It kind of has to do with, we teach our Live Safe training, and very first habit, the first goal is create safe habits, right?
Absolutely.
And because you can't. There's no guarantee that there's nothing you can do that's going to guarantee that you're never going to be around, an active shooter incident. But there's a lot of stuff you can stock the odds in your favor.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, it's the statistics right now are, any individual is less than 1%, far less than 1% of the chances statistically of being present for an active shooter event. But again, the chance is there. And if I can continue to answer the question for a moment, I think the even bigger picture is that active shooter incidences and things like that, the people who commit them don't just flip a switch, right? Every time you look into their history or their background, there's trouble, right? They've had some kind of troubled history. They have a troubled background, messed up childhood. There's all kinds of things where you look back and you think, oh, okay, this person was heading for a negative place, and they this has happened to be how it sort of manifested in the end. So I think that in our industry, if we're martial arts professionals, I think the best, most impactful thing we can do is keep doing what we're doing and recognize the impact that what we do in our classrooms has on young people, because all the active shooters were all kids once, and maybe they were in a karate program or maybe they weren't. But if we can model and show empathy and develop healthy mindsets in kids, that means they're less likely that when bad stuff happens in their lives, they're less likely to become bad people. Like you said before, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Right. So if we can keep them from getting hurt when they're young, maybe they don't hurt people when they're older.
I love it, man. So it's preventative, right? So the bottom line is, if you're a martial arts professional out there, what we're doing, if we do our job right, and what I mean by job right is teaching quality martial arts, but really being empathetic with our students and having a character training component. And by the way, you can get character just by, you don't even have to give a message of the week to develop character. Just get the process of training and learning, understand what respect and courtesy is. But putting emphasis on character magnifies it a whole bunch. But what happens now, I think, is the next generation comes up and they're less likely. In other words, we are giving people tools that are going to make them less likely to be active shooters in 20 years.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I think I know you and I were talking about this last week, and you brought that up, and I'm so glad you brought it up again, because what we do is so important, and we will never see that. We'll never be able to say.
We'll never know. Yeah.
But we know this instinctively, the effect it's going to have. And then, how many people have you in your teaching career, how many times have you had somebody that either a parent that said thank you for what you've done for my child, or someone that came back that trained with you 15 years ago that says thank you, that we know the impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's really good to stop and remember those every once in a while, because sometimes it's, you forget to think about it in the day-to-day of like running a business and trying to keep the doors open and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. All
right. Well, so let's get down nitty gritty. Talk us through some strategy now, man. So, it's statistics about active shooter, when it happens, what are some things I should do and not do, and how can you give some people some value, something they can put to work?
Yeah. So, you know what? There's a lot of good, resources out there and material that you can, if somebody wanted to Google stuff like this, there's a decent amount out there. I think start off with, why are we talking about it is because it keeps happening, and it's happening more and more every year. So some of the statistics attached to that are, and these are all FBI statistics, right? So and they do a study about every 5 years. So here's the thing about statistics is you got to look in a little bit deeper every time you hear statistics, but you're going to want to make sure you're doing apples to apples comparison. So this is an apples to apples comparison that the FBI did. In 2000, there was one incident that was considered an active shooter incident. There was 9 in 2005. There was 26 in 2010. There was 20 in 2015. There was 30 in 2019, and there was 50 last year in 2022. Some places are reporting as many over 200 or as much as 300 already this year. That's not FBI. That there's a couple of different places, right? And what counts, what doesn't count. But no matter where you look, it's on the rise, right? Incidents continue to happen at a more frequent rate as the years go by. So, that tells us, well, yes, we should be talking about this. We should be thinking about it. We should be aware of it.
And I also feel like because, we run schools that have a lot of people in there, chances are we're maybe not as likely of a place that someone's going to come in, but still it's something that should be on our mind. What's our exit strategy for our students, and, what's our plan? But
exactly. And I think that it's similar to just general self-defense in that if you've never thought about it, right, that's a problem. As soon as you start thinking about it critically and really give it a little bit of attention, you're already like just so much better off.
We call it be aware but not on guard, right?
Absolutely.
You're not naive, nor are you paranoid. You don't want to lock yourself in your house and never go outside because you're worried about this, because that's no way to live a life, right? You just want to be kind of, and not be reckless and do stupid stuff, but just kind of where you go. Like I was in Boston this weekend doing a seminar, and we went out to dinner, and I just positioned myself in a way that I could see what was going on. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's just kind of a habit that I've established. I know where the exits are, and I kind of scan the. And it's not that I'm paranoid. It's almost kind of. I'm sure you do the same. It's almost kind of a game. It's kind of fun. Like, all right, if there was a bad guy in here, who would it be? And so, and that's just something that I've trained to do. I feel like it's my martial responsibility.
And making a game out of it, I think, is one of the most effective things people can do. Don't think of it as like I'm getting tactically ready. Think of it as a game, and then kind of just play the game. And you can make a game out of identifying exits. You can make a game out of identifying where fire extinguishers are. You can make a game out of identifying, hey, what looks like cover versus concealment in this space. You can make a little game about, all right, what if you can have fun with it, not to make light, but like, okay, if Loki or one of his minions from Marvel came in and the front door, what weapon would I grab to, fight off the bad guy? So make a little mental game out of it, and that's the kind of thing that grows habitually, right? Before you know it, you're doing it almost automatically, and it doesn't have to intrude too much upon your consciousness, but it's there. Okay,
so take us through some, like some of what are some of the set kind of. I know this is a work in progress, but what are some basic steps? What formula can I use and think of when it comes to if I'm all of a sudden find myself somewhere and I'm in an active shooter scenario? Give me some stuff.
Right. So the standard protocol is what's called run, hide, fight. And, that's a great place to start, right? If you can escape. And that's no different from any other general self-defense tip. If there's danger at a particular place, then moving away from that place is a good idea, right? That can be kind of tough if there's no immediate obvious egress. The proximity of the bad guy can possibly make it tough, and who you're with and who you're responsible for is probably the biggest sticking point for that, right? But if it's just you and there's something going down nearby, just get the heck out of there.
Yeah, and I think why it's important just to know that is like what you said, fight or flight kicks in, I'm not used to it. I hear something, I might just freeze in my tracks and not have any clue. But if I've heard run, hide, fight, and that's popped into my head, run. But at least now I have the options. Maybe like you said, maybe I can't. Maybe I'm with my grandma who's in a wheelchair and I can't leave her, or I've got two small kids I got to watch out for, all those things. But at least I have a plan with which to deviate. So the first step is to run. So I'm just trying to get the heck out of there.
Yeah, look for an escape route as much as possible. And then the second stage, and these are generally presented in, if A, yes, or if not A, go B. If not B, go C, right? That's not necessary. It's nice to be able to think of it in clear, simple terms like that. So it's not always that simple, just because, again,
life doesn't work that way.
Who you're with, and there's no guarantees, right? Every incident is absolutely its own animal, and nobody knows until the aftermath what right decisions may have been made. But secondly is hide, right? So look for a place to get out of sight. And behind cover, of course, is best. Again, that's not always easy, but there are places that everybody is in on a regular basis, home, work, and maybe someplace else, where you're in the same space on a daily basis for hours. You can sit in that space and you can think about, all right, look around me. What could I hide behind? What doors could I close? What barricades could I create, right? So what furniture is around that I could move in front of a door, in front of a window? And it bears thinking about. It's hard to know without a little bit of training, but what's cover? Now, so what's the difference between cover and concealment? Concealment is just that. It conceals you from view, but it does not stop bullets. Cover, by definition, stops bullets. And unfortunately, most services that we encounter in our daily lives, like I'm looking around the room right now, there's pretty much nothing in here that would count as cover. Even a door that has a little bit of steel in it, probably not something that I would rely on in that case. But getting someplace, and then if you know that you've got a hiding place, what can you do to barricade and fortify that hiding place, and what weapons are in that hiding place that you could grab and use should the bad guy come to you somehow.
So, the statistics are, from, let's just say you're in some public place and there's an active shooter, somebody, you hear a gun go off. It's like, it's a few minutes before there's usually help there.
Absolutely, yeah. So the average active shooter incident lasts 12 minutes, but many of them are over before that. Police response on average is about 3 minutes.
That's impressive, actually.
Yeah, it's really fast. Here's the hard part of that, though, is that's once somebody notifies 911, the dispatcher gets the details, and then they.
So it could have been going on for 6-7 minutes already by the time that the dispatcher is notified.
Yeah, so that can make it more like a 10-minute.
And that's
like a 10-minute response time.
I don't want to jump the gun, but that's why the fight part might be necessary, right? I mean, statistics are people put up a fight, they're more likely to have the less fatalities. Isn't that not true?
That's true. Yeah, that's what the statistics, easy for me to say, indicate, right? So the earlier the bad guy meets resistance, the less casualties there are. That's what the broad takeaway is from there. And how does the bad guy meet resistance? Does it have to be law enforcement? No, it could be citizens. Anybody that stands up to the bad guy and takes some direct action against them ultimately saves people's lives. Not necessarily their own, which is kind of a hard thing to think about, especially if you try and imagine yourself in that position. That would be a hard choice to make, and it's not something that, that's everyone's personal choice, right? But the fact is that the sooner they meet resistance, the less people they kill.
Yeah, it's unfortunate we have to think about that, but that is something that's probably, especially as martial arts professionals, we should know about. So and you wonder how you do, because we don't really know how we do. Yeah. I like to think, although I hope it never happens, that I would not freeze, that I would do the right thing, but I guess we'll never know, and I'm okay if we never find out. By the way.
I'm okay too, but yeah, it's a tough thing, right?
All right, so let's fight. What the heck does that mean? Give me some ideas here, man. This guy's got, I've got nothing. I've got a fire extinguisher. I've got a chair. This guy's got an assault rifle.
Right.
Give me some ideas.
So go hard and go fast. Let's see if I'm going to butcher a quote.
A good plan done, a mediocre plan done violently is better than a perfectly plan executed with caution. It's like something like that's patent, right?
Yes,
General
it's exactly right. So so-called technique, or what the exact move you do, is far less important in situations like that than just hard, explosive, aggressive action as early and as fierce as you can make it.
And I think this is such an important distinction. Being like both of us are, lifetime martial artists, and we know 432 different defenses against this attack and that and all that. And it's great, and it's fun to kind of play around with like getting the right angle when you're grabbing the wrist, when you're doing this. If you could pull from the pinky towards the finger, but the reality is most of that's going to go out the window, and what you want to do is you want to you get there as fast as you can, as violently as you can, just and as much as you can, low brain stuff, real easy, accessible.
Yes, sir, gross motor movements. I liken it to this: if there was like a theoretical ninja who's trained ninjutsu, and knew like 100 different techniques, but had never been in a battle, and a football player, an NFL football player that was just ready to go, that football player he's gonna be the one that is more effective, right? He's just gonna hard charge the guy, tackle him as hard as fast as he can. No technique, right? It's just smashing into the guy, and that's kind of really where it's at. So technique can help, of course, right? If I have trained on, or if a person, a student of ours has trained on some little technique on how to take down a bad guy and give him a little bit of a better chance, that's absolutely a good thing.
Yeah,
but
sure.
The mindset and the aggression is more important. And here's the thing about that, though. If we can show people a little something, right? We could tell somebody, just go and go at them hard and fast. Here's a way that you could do it that's a little bit technical. That might make the difference between them making that choice. They might give that 100%. Just might be the
now
one
they
that
have
makes
a plan.
the convenient.
Now they have a plan,
right?
It's kind of like in self-defense. If you approach me and I step back and I put my hands up and I have no clue what to do, I don't have a plan. I'm going to respond differently than if I just know one basic thing, and at least I'm thinking if he takes another step towards me, I'm going to palm strike him nose as hard as I can. Now it changes my energy. So I guess the same thing would apply. At least I have a plan, and that puts me.
I learned something about this, and that means that I can be committed.
Yeah. So terrible thing to have to think about once again, but important that we discuss it. So give me like, should I attack straight on? Should I come in at an angle? Do I try to, I say stop, please don't hurt people. I mean, what's kind of, give me a basic strategy. Describe a basic strategy.
Yeah. Tackle them. That's about as basic as you can get. Tackle them hard and fast. Now, it's always better to come at them sideways or from behind. It's always better if they're not necessarily aware of you or not pointing the gun in your general direction at that time. But again, every incident is a little bit different. Who knows? But if you put the number one goal of, all right, I need to disrupt this person's ability to kill more people right now, just go at them, tackle them. So
I love this line too. Like you're thinking of night gun defense. Yeah, a great one is grip and rip. You know what I mean? Like get a hold of that thing as much as you can, right? When you're in the process of tackling it. So, kind of the next step along this line. So you've got, you're going to try to tackle them, okay?
Yes, sir.
As effectively as you can. So, but this guy probably is a super highly trained John Wick.
Yes, he was trained by John Wick and Hattori Hanzo, the famous ninja, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Commando. No, it's absolutely the opposite of that. So the typical active shooter is untrained. They may have put some time on the range shooting their guns, maybe a little bit, but they don't know what they're doing, and they're going to be as disrupted, as surprised, as shocked, as injured as anybody else if you could just go at them. So
bottom line is once they've got real resistance, there's a good chance their spirit will leave.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what happens in most of the times.
And by the way, there's no guarantee that's the case. There could be some guy that was a special forces guy that's got tons of training, but specifically speaking, if we had if we were to line up all these guys and look at their history, the majority of active shooters aren't necessarily highly trained killers.
No, they're not. Yeah, their spirit does break very easily under resistance.
Stats have shown that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they're not trained and they're not particularly hardened. They just have the means and willingness to do a bad thing when they're assuming there's no resistance. They see themselves as this powerful figure and people will just cower before them. And as soon as that's not the case, things go poorly for them.
Yeah. Well. Any last minute thoughts? I mean, first and foremost, guys, I want to share a bit, and I'm gonna throw out because I think this applies to this scenario. But I want to talk about the 5 rules of personal safety. So, rule number 1: create safe habits. What the heck does that mean?
So just analyze your day, like a typical day from dawn to dusk. Like try to pick apart what are you doing. And first off, it's always good to identify what you're already doing that is making you safer, right? And so yes, I lock my doors as soon as I close my car door. Like little things like that. If you're in the habit of that, great. Guard that habit, right? And then of course, what could I be doing better? And don't try to change everything all at once, right? But if there's one thing that I could be doing differently, perhaps that's leaving early for work so I get gas during daylight hours instead of sometimes being stuck getting gas at nighttime.
Okay. All right. So next step number 2 is to be aware but not on guard. Kind of run me through that again.
So you love Gavin de Becker's quote, true fear is a gift, imagined fear is a curse.
Yes.
Right? Being aware but not on guard just means that you're just opening all of your senses, right? You're opening all of your senses, you're taking in the environment. What you're not doing is sticking your nose down in your phone or not watching where you're going, right? You're keeping your head up, you're keeping it all on a swivel, not because you think, something bad's going to happen, but because you just want to know what's going on in your environment.
Yeah, and there's a time. Let's imagine, kind of use the green light, yellow light, red light concept. Like you're in your backyard, you're having a barbecue with your family. You not have to, that's the last thing. Your guard is down, it's dropped. Green light, have fun. But when you're out in public, it's kind of like you have that blinking yellow light. That just means when I see that, you kind of you're paying a little bit better attention when you're driving, and that's kind of the concept with this,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it's. I think another way to kind of sum it up is make no assumptions. Either way, make no assumptions that a bad thing will happen. Make no assumptions that a bad thing won't happen.
Yep. Good. Next step is trust your intuition. What the heck does that mean?
Oh, this is super, super important. So, everybody's got a gut feeling about stuff, and I wouldn't say every, but like the overwhelming majority of after-action police reports with victims that have survived any sort of violent confrontation, almost every single time, they say, "Oh, I had this bad feeling," and they should listen to it, right? So we've all got that kind of spidey sense in there, and we don't necessarily aren't able to articulate why we're feeling a certain way about a certain place, person, or situation. But when we feel that, we just need to take it seriously. Yeah. And there's a lot of, I'll diverge into the active shooter for a second. There's a lot of very specific technical training on recognizing signs of imminent violence in people, from watching body language and things like that. And there's courses, and there's people in law enforcement, FBI, that are highly trained on this. But it doesn't take years of specific training. If people are just kind of aware of their surroundings, basic human instincts can do a lot of heavy lifting in this area. If something feels off, take it seriously. It's probably off.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a time when I was in the UK, and I show up to, I'm doing a seminar, and I get back, and the hotel I've got, it's got a pub in it, and I get there right as the soccer or football game just gets over, and there's a bunch of guys wearing Manchester United uniform, like jerseys on, and they're inebriated, and they walk towards me. I'm getting ready to get on the elevator, and they get on the same elevator, and somebody's, I kind of nod my head at them like, "Hey, what's going on?" And one of them says something, and it was clearly an insult directed my way, and I didn't have any, I'm imagining they were imagining I'm on the other team. I don't even know who they played. So elevator doors open. Of course, first response was my fragile male ego. I'm not afraid of these guys. I'm going to get on the elevator with them, And then I thought, in nature, what animal would get into a soundproof steel cage with a potential predator? So I just let him get on the elevator, and I got on the next one, right? And it was like, that was hopefully, trusting my intuition, right? Absolutely. Chances are 99 out of 90% or more that I would have been just fine. But Absolutely. Why even take the risk? So it's kind of like, that's the whole idea with trust your intuition. It's, if in doubt, get out, right? All right, so the next step is to take action.
Yes,
so
sir.
What are we talking about there?
So ideally, where the first action you take is, like you said, if in doubt, get out. If you're in any sort of, and generally speaking, any sort of situation that just feels off, just leave. Just get the heck out of there, right? Yeah. And if that's not an option, don't freeze. Just about any action that you take is better than no action at all.
Yeah, very good.
Hopefully we de-escalate if that's an option. But with what we're talking about today, it's run, hide, fight. You go and don't sit there and wonder, is this really what's happening right now? Assume it is.
Yeah. All right, last step is, of course, learn from your experience and the experience of others. So how would you interpret that?
Well, shameless plug, go to a self-defense class, right? Yeah. We self-defense instructors, martial arts experts, we've been, doing this. That's all we've done is we've learned from the experience of others, right? From student to or teacher to student down through the ages. But it's also looking around in the world around you and hearing about things. If you hear a story from someone, if you see a story on the news, try to analyze it. Step back and say, okay, how did that happen? What would I have done differently? And what went well, what didn't go well, and just be analytical about that stuff.
Yeah, I have a guy that I know that says, he's really good at self-defense because he's been in over 100 fights. And probably 100 fights probably means it was really 22 fights, and one of them, several of them. But what do you think of when you think of that? What jumps out to you?
He failed at steps 1, 2, 3, and
exactly.
3.
Exactly. He learned from his experience, right? So like it's kind of like, do you want to fly a plane with a pilot that's been in 63 plane accidents? Probably not. No. So I guess what I'm saying is that you can learn vicariously by taking a self-defense course. When you hear about stuff happening, backtrack and thinking, how could that have been avoided? And then trying to adopt that in your life. Well, hey man, always enjoy speaking with you about this subject.
Of course,
and other stuff.
Pleasure's all mine.
I appreciate you guys. Hopefully, thanks for tuning in, and look forward to having you guys join us for other podcasts. Thank you, Tim Leard.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for tuning in today to our podcast. I hope you found it valuable and inspirational. To stay connected, please subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you go for your podcasts. If you enjoyed today's show, please give us a 5-star review. And we really sincerely would appreciate some feedback. Your feedback helps us to create high quality content that will help others in the future. If you'd like to follow me, you can go to Dave Kovar on Facebook or Hanchy Dave Kovar on Instagram. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on next episode.